So welcome to everyone. Thanks for giving us some of your time today. I know time is quite precious at the moment, so and I know this cuts over potentially into people's lunch breaks as well. So an extra thank you for that. Obviously, during our presentation today, please feel free to use the chat to drop in any questions that you might have, any observations, discussion points, etc., and we'll happily pick those up at the right time. So, without further ado, I'll just walk through our agenda today. So, obviously, we do some introductions. We're going to run through an overview of the continuous improvement journey, looking at what day one foundations look like in an ideal world, and then how we get started with that, and then looking at the stickiness of continuous improvement, and then we'll follow on with some takeaways and then a Q&A for you as well. We will have some polls throughout, so please take part. It's nice to know that people are listening and have some opinions, and it'd be good to understand where you are in terms of your journeys, and that'll help us to shape some parts of what we discuss as well. So please get involved. I'm going to hand over to Donna. I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then I'll follow on. So over to you, Donna.
Hi everybody, afternoon. I said morning just, but we are into afternoon now. I'm Donna Stokes. I'm the director of Quite-Laterally. I have been involved in ERP HCM for about 15 years, and about 6 years ago co-founded Quite-Laterally, who are an advisory partner to support customers with their ERP HCM journey, really from business case all the way to go live, and then of course into continuous improvement, which is what we'll be focusing on today. Tony, I'll hand back to you for your introductions.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Tony Cook. I'm the founder and CEO of Fudgelearn. We're fundamentally the people part of transformation. So we support everything from change to adoption of new ERP solutions, and we deliver end-to-end training solutions. So very pleased to be here today, and obviously continuous improvement is a big part of our mentality, and obviously working very closely with our partners like Donna enables that to take place. So I'm really pleased that we're working here today. So thanks, Don. We're going to start off with a poll. I think my colleague is going to put that up very quickly. So I've got a couple of screens here. So if I look from one side to the other, it's because something's popped up on my other screen. But we're trying to understand on this poll where you guys are at in terms of your ERP go live. Thanks for those that are already responding. I'll just give you a couple of seconds. So we've got a few more to add to the responses here. Interestingly, we've got the larger cohort of you seem to be live for 2 years or more. I'll just give it 5 more seconds, and I'll end that poll there. So the results are that we've got, hopefully, Donna, you can see that.
I can.
Okay, so we've got a chunk of people going live in the next 3 to 9 months. That's interesting. But those that have just gone live, and some that have recently gone, and those that have been gone for some time. So good blend of people here, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Thank you so
Place to
much
be
for that.
today.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so Donna, why don't you talk us through continuous improvement and why that is important?
Thank you, Tony. So, continuous improvement. I was thinking about this when I was practicing my slides yesterday. How do I start with this slide? Where do we go? And my analogy, and stay with me for just a minute, but my analogy was really around buying a house. So, put all this money into buying a house, you go looking for this house, you find the perfect house, and you think, brilliant, that's it. My house move's done. This is my forever home. I'm going to live in it forever and I'm going to love it. And that could well be true, but the reality is it doesn't matter how much you love that house, you're always going to want to do things to it. So whether that's changing the wallpaper, the curtains, painting the skirtings, building an extension, you're always looking to continuously improve that house. You still love it, you haven't changed it, and your investment was still absolutely worth that investment, but you do need to move with the times and see what else that you can explore within that house. And continuous improvement in the workspace really is no different to that. You've found your ERP HCM solution, you've implemented it, it cost a lot of money. There was a bit of blood, sweat, and tears along the way, and you were probably really over it by the time it went live. And that, for me, would be the same analogy as buying a house. But once we've taken a breath, once we've enjoyed it for a little bit, once we've started to work out, okay, well, what do we do with this? We then start thinking about, okay, well, what else could we do? How else could we sweat that asset? How else could we improve? And that, for me, is very much the same journey. So go live, whilst I know everybody hates to hear it, is really only day one, and everything that goes into it after is really where you get those key improvements. And it's a ever growing, ever returning piece of work that doesn't stop, just like the investment you put into a house. So that's what I would say. Everything we're going to be talking about today, you'll be pleased to know, isn't about house or furniture, but it is about that transition from implementation go live and into what next and how we benefit. So that's a little bit about continuous improvement.
Okay, excellent. So post go live, um, I think you'll agree with this, Don, that I think every single project that I've been involved in, it's really common that there's change requests post go live. A number of these, I think, is down to a lack of system knowledge at point of design. So my recommendation to try and reduce that is to get as much pre-project training in as possible to enable those design sessions to be as fruitful as they can be, and reduce down on some of the CRs. But essentially, I would say don't be afraid of change requests. They are commonplace. Would you say the same?
I would say I've never seen a project without a change request.
Yeah, exactly.
And if
So
you stay under 100, you're doing well.
exactly. So I think, embrace cloud, and also for me, have that op model support from your cutover plan forward. Have it in your cutover plan and rehearse it so that, the stakeholders throughout the business are aware that this is coming, because it's not just a technical cutover, is it? It's a business cutover. So, plan that into that cutover. And that continuous improvement piece, for me, should be planned into operations moving forward. So I think that's one of the key sort of takeaways I would suggest here. Um, let's we've only got one more poll, and this is it. Okay, so don't worry, we're not going to hit you with polls all the time, but it'll be really good to just for really just to pop up this next poll for us. Um, and what we're trying to understand here is, what is the biggest ERP challenge that you're all facing right now? I know we've only got a number of options in here, but hopefully they're relevant for you. And again, I'll just give you a few moments just to populate your answers here. Hopefully we'll get a good level of participation like last time. I think I know where this one's going. Okay, we seem to have ground to a halt. So I'm gonna end that poll, and then let's share the results here. So unsurprising, the bigger amount of users are facing challenges around keeping up with the updates. No new news there, Donna.
No. I think
Uh,
what we should do is a webinar around continuous improvement, Tony.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Thought of that. But driving adoption post go live, interesting. Preparing users for go live, obviously that's a big one. And we've got some answers there about whether learning is working as well. So I think they're all relevant to this conversation. And we'll continue through. So thank you so much for that. So Donna, over to you. What are we considering from day one?
So, and maybe not from day one. I think to your point, Tony, and some of based on what everybody's just said, it's probably day minus a lot of days. It really
Yeah.
needs to be considered about almost as part of that implementation journey. The reality is you will not get everything done in implementation. The reality is you won't be able to do everything during implementation, and there is going to be that post go live. And I think that's okay as long as we're realistic about we do need to come back to it. So what do we need to support that? We will need ongoing budget. It is going to cost money. It's not going to cost anywhere near what your implementation cost, but having that continuous improvement change budget ongoing year on year will definitely support the business for what they need to do. And it does need to continually have support from the top down. Everybody's over it. We've done the implementation. I thought I could go back to my day job. This wasn't part of my day job. The system isn't something I do. It is, and it always will be from now and forever, whether you like it or not. It's an enabler of your organization, of your business processes. You can be, more and less involved within the system, but we should be enabling everything by everything that we've set up within the system. So having that support and having that steer, I think helps all of those sort of SMEs on the ground. And focusing on change as that key driver now, again, going back to the points that we made previously, we've
Mm.
already learned a lot from the implementation. This isn't necessarily a completely different thing. It's just a smaller part of what we've done, and using those skills, using those tools, using what we've learned through the implementation, I think will really help when you start moving into that continuous improvement. And I think there's two parts of continuous improvement and change, and we shouldn't confuse the two. So yes, if you're doing a lot in your next phase of a project, it probably is going to be bundled up as phase two, but it's just
Mm.
continuous improvement. Often that
Mm.
will need more money, more resource, more time, more effort, because you've already got a big list of things you wanted to do that you didn't do the first time around.
Mm.
It's not going to be like that all of the time. So year on year, that continuous improvement will become more stable, will become more embedded into BAU, but we'll still need some focus. So not everything about continuous improvement is one big project for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And then
But
in terms of the vision, so going into this, and probably nobody really thinks about it when we start in that implementation journey, but it's not just about the appetite for implementation, it's also appetite for that continuous improvement change journey. So once we've implemented, how much are we going to feed and water this system? How much are we going to get the best out of it? So that business case we wrote now 3, 4, 5 years ago, I think for some of the people on this call, there's still a return on investment to be had. There's still things that we wrote in that business case that we may not yet have delivered, that we should be bringing
mm.
back as part of that continuous improvement journey. So if we are going to just keep the lights on, if we are going to just do those minimal patch updates and not much more, that's okay. But you probably aren't going to get that return on investment. I always reference the Ferrari in the garage. You've already paid for the Ferrari. Why are you just leaving it in the corner? Let's take it out. Let's give it its run. Let's, take it through the car wash. So understanding that and making sure that the business understands that from top down really then supports that continuous improvement, and it really reduces that sort of change fatigue, because we know it's coming, and actually it's quite exciting because what can we do next and what's our end user saying. So some really good things out of this, but understand that vision, understand that appetite for sure. It's me again for the next few slides. Sorry, everybody. So, the next couple of slides really talks about ideal world, happy path, things that we already know. And the reality is that this isn't necessarily where you will be, especially for some of those who have been on maybe a 4 or 5 year journey that showed in the poll. But I think people forget about the implementation journey. And for those that are currently in the implementation journey, they're probably thinking, I'm never going to get forget this in my whole life. But it does fade. And actually, there's a huge amount that you learn through implementation, through your delivery partner, through your SI, through your vendor, through your support, where they may have all gone now and it's just yourselves, but actually you learn a lot. So go back to that. Lessons is a really crucial one. We went live at year end. Wasn't that a terrible idea? We really struggled with adoption We put a new module live in August when everybody was on holiday, and then we wondered why nobody knew what to do or how to do it. We put a change in and we didn't really talk about it enough, and we didn't do enough training on it. Let's not do that again. And the adverse to that. So actually, when we released that new module and we had our change champions working with us, and we had our training team working with us, and we really communicated about it, and we did soft launches and we brought them into testing, didn't that go really well? Because everybody took that adoption journey. So learn those lessons that you've already learned and remind yourselves of that before you start continuous improvement. I think is a really good place to start. And I often find that when I go back over lessons logs, yes, there's lots of things in there that I've heard on every project, but there's always real nuggets of information that you go, oh yeah, I remember that. Let's not do that again. Or equally, God, that went really well actually because we did this thing. So don't forget that. Your risks and issues will always be there, whether they are project risks and issues or just your business as usual risks or issues. It's important to understand. And I think when we think about risks and issues, we always think about sort of dramatic project risks and issues. Some of them can just be around that flex within your organisation. If you're in local authority, there'll be a political landscape you might need to consider, or year end, or, there's different things that you already know and you can be tracking and managing because they're going to be key to that adoption. And then roadmap. The roadmap is a really interesting one, and we'll talk about this in a couple of slides' time. But trying to already map out what the next 6, 12 months looks like will be really useful for you. And it's a little bit like that project planning implementation. We know we're going to do design, and then we're going to do test and data migration and training and all of those things combined. It's the same thing with a continuous improvement roadmap. So don't forget that. Thanks, Tony.
No worries.
And then on to sort of change in itself, really. Again, just because you're not in project anymore, that governance, that assurance that you're wrapped around change shouldn't disappear. In fact, it should only get stronger because you've lost some of that knowledge and skills, maybe from some of your external resources going, oh, don't forget that, do this. So now you want to really embed change using everything you learn from your implementation. So change control process. We don't just make changes. We don't just shove something in the system and hope that it works. We talk it through, we document it, we consider the impact, we consider whether it's the right thing to do, and then we decide how we're going to implement it. We're going to test it. We're going to show everybody how to use it. We're going to show and take everybody on that adoption journey. So change control process is really key to anything continuous improvement. Similarly with CAB, your change authority board, that should be a bunch of key stakeholders that really are invested in everything that you're doing in a change. You're going to potentially have lots and lots of feedback from lots of different people on what they would like to see. You're not going to please everybody. So having that change authority board, having stakeholders that are identifying their changes for their business area and understanding why things are good, bad, and indifferent will definitely be crucial.
Just on that cab piece, though, Don, I think that when it comes to projects that we're on and managed services that we provide, quite often the partners that need to be involved in the cab aren't. And I think it's really important to make sure that's considered.
Yeah.
It's not just an internal piece. And particularly if you've got digital adoption platforms, for example, if you're making changes to the system or the process, that's going to impact. So that all of that needs to be considered as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think within any change there, whether it's a piece of paper or whether it's a digital form, whether it's a system, however you're managing change, there is a number of questions that you should be asking yourselves and be challenging yourselves. I've sat on so many cabs where the person putting through the change is giving a story and nobody asks a question and nobody says a word. And I think you can't possibly not have a question. You can't possibly not be thinking, well, what about training? What about quick reference guides? What about communication? Exactly as you say, the system is just a part of it. We can make a change, but actually, if we're not taking people on that journey, it's going to get lost along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And equally, not every idea is a good idea. So
Mm.
you've got to try and balance those things. We might decide that we want every screen blue because it's my favorite color today. But when you start unpicking that, especially with your managed service or with your system admin team, okay, well, that means that's a customization on every single screen. So we're going to test every single screen every time we have a patch, and it might break and it doesn't really matter. And actually, that's not a good idea at all. So you
Yeah.
really want that challenge, that constructive criticism to make sure that those decisions are made because then they're not always the right one.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, okay, and we'll move on to the next one. So again, sort of with the change theme, as you'd expect for continuous improvement, I've seen change champions used in lots of organisation. Some do better than others, and it very much depends on that organisation and how mature they are in the world of change champions. But as a project team or as a business as usual, as professional users, you're only so big. So getting those change champions in every single area of the business is crucial to that change process. And you may well have had them in implementation. And again, I've seen lots of organizations, they've done so well with change champions. They go live and it's, oh, it doesn't matter now. We'll stop doing those quarterly meetings and those updates, and we'll stop telling you about the changes that are coming because you were just part of implementation. They're probably more crucial at this stage than they are at implementation. So don't let them go. They're a really good way of spreading the word and equally spreading it back to you as well.
I think the other thing about the change champions as well, Donna, is it's the expectation of the change champion. Have they done this role before? Do they need some confidence and upskilling to
Yeah.
be this type of person in the organization? Because quite often, the roles are allocated, but they're not really told explicitly what they need to be doing and what their outcomes need to be and how they can support the program or the business moving forward, right? So that's a real key part of that too.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's, you need to have good communication skills both ways. You need to be able to interpret what you've just been told, which often is a lot.
Mm,
And then equally, you need to be confident enough to say, I've just gone and told my team that, and they think it's a terrible idea, and you haven't thought about this, this, and this. And it's not, they shouldn't feel like, oh God, I don't want to say that. Actually, that's exactly what you want them to come back and say because maybe you haven't considered their area. The answer may still be the same, but it's important to get that two-way communication at all times.
yeah.
Um, Change budget, we've talked a little bit about this already, and I know it's scary, and I know for some people it's, we've just spent millions of pounds, we don't want to spend more, we haven't got more to spend, but this can be flexed up and down, really depending on your organisation, and not every year are you going to spend huge amounts of money, and not every year will you need the same amount of money, and some things may just have to wait. We won't be able to do that until quarter two, or we won't be able to do that till 25, 26. So that roadmap that we were talking about earlier will really help them with that budgeting, and also submitting that budget each year rather than it just being a guesstimate of all that value sounds enough or that value sounds right. You can now sort of say, okay, well actually we know X, Y, and Z is coming. We'll talk a little bit about that how and where that change comes from in a couple of slides time, I think. But yeah, change budget is definitely something you don't want to be scrapping around for, but also managing priorities well. And then finally, oh, sorry, Tony. And then
Sorry, I've moved
finally,
on. Mhm.
the system support and managed service. So some of you will have no managed service. Some of you will be wholly reliant on your managed service. Some of you will have a really strong systems team. Some of you will be working very well together, depending on what that changes as to whether that goes internally or externally. And then some of you may have totally smashed it, got rid of that managed service and doing it all internally. It's not often I see the latter because the
Mm.
reality is, it is complicated, it is complex, and you've got to work out where those skills need to be. But again, and I think something that Tony was talking about, whatever your setup is, you need to make sure that everybody in that journey is considered as part of those stakeholders. If you do have a managed service, you should be leaning on them. These are the changes we're thinking of implementing. What's your view? What's best practice? Because we definitely don't want to be moving away from whatever those principles were that we set out in implementation. So if our principles are we want to remain with best practice, what we don't want to do is implement based on best practice, wait until we go live and then start bringing all of those changes in to get back to heavily customized solutions. So there's a balance to be sure for sure, and those two areas should be helping with that.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Sorry, I moved on before you finished that point there, Donna.
It's
Uh,
all right. I got the note.
bit trigger happy.
Move on.
Okay. So I'm sure this isn't a picture of me, but equally, what does the continuous improvement look like? I mean, fundamentally, you've already touched on this, Donna, but the retrospectives are key here, aren't they? Don't make the same mistakes. Look back, learn from those lessons, play back your retrospectives, and understand, where things went slightly wonky, and then how you can, ensure that doesn't happen again. I think that's a real key thing. I think, in terms of planning, make sure it's clear, concise, and involved, like you've said already, involving all of the relevant stakeholders, and make sure that there's a well thought out and clear path. And I think also make sure the plan involves like some periodically assessments all the way through it to make sure you're measuring that performance, you're embracing some of the innovation opportunities that might be sat in front of you, and also identify where some of your team need upskilling or some resources to support this vision as well. And also, do you have the team to do that? Do you need to bring in external support? Is it your managed service provider that's going to be taking the load of this? How is that going to be managed, and who needs to be, who needs to be responsible for that as well? And over to that, how do we prioritize all that, Donna?
So I think we've talked about the roadmap a couple of times, and I think that having that documented, understanding what people's focus is, and understanding whether we can resource it, do we have the budget for it, can we deliver it, is it our priority, is critical. It'll be everybody else's priority for sure, but it's about being realistic. What can we achieve within a period of time, based on resource, based on money, based on expertise,
Yeah,
based on appetite, and also balancing that with some of those that are out of your control. So unfortunately, we know that in most ERP HCM solutions there is going to be patch updates, some more frequently than others for sure, but they are things that we're going to need to manage. And it's about then how we manage those. How do we take those non-mandatory updates if we feel that they're valuable and relevant to us?
yeah,
And then also, how do we navigate some of those things that are external? So, political things, regulatory things, statutory things, because they might not have been in our 12-month plan. So, if the government decides to update the Procurement Act, or we have the Employment Rights Act, or whatever it might be, these are going to be things that are going to impact the system, that are going to have to take a priority over some of the other things, because we can't push them out. It's now law. So there
mm,
is a balance to be struck. There's not an easy answer to some of this, but the more that we can plan early, and the more that we know things are coming, generally things outside of our control don't happen overnight. So we
yeah,
know that we don't always know all of the detail immediately, but we've got an idea and we know what's coming, so we can start planning for those things.
yeah, yeah. Good points there. The legislative pieces are definitely key to plan for sure. Um, okay, so what really puts the brakes on post go live? Um, well, I think fundamentally, when continuous improvement becomes reactive is when it's not planned for, like we said, way back, and it's not in the op model moving forward. I think that's one of the big ones that probably you come across a lot, Donna. I know we do. Um, but obviously, what also happens is that hypercare stops, falls back, the stabilizers come off, and that leads to a spike in service requests, and can also, from a lot of the user community, can lead to a real drop in confidence as well. So we've got to be mindful of this. And alongside that, we're all human. Projects are very stressful. We work incredibly hard through these life cycles, and that change fatigue can set in as well. So we have to be mindful of that as well. And then things become reactive as opposed to being proactive and structured. So I think the key thing that we're saying here is get this plan way before you cut over, and make sure it's brought into your op model, so that, it becomes part of the BAU process moving forward. Um, and, you know, in terms of, keeping things evergreen, keep working that roadmap, keep working with that plan, and use tools to support it. In the Oracle world, we've got Success Navigator, which is a fantastic tool for planning, your enhancement of the system and adoption of new features and functions, but also your quarterly updates. In terms of keeping things like your training materials fresh, we have tools that we use that enable auto re-recording of training content that enables you to keep your content up to date with each release as well. So, look at tools that you can use to take some of that pain away, because, maintenance of training assets has always been a complete nightmare for most people. And you've got your joiners, your movers, your levers that you've got to think about. And that will enable the onboarding of new starters and movers within the business as well. But also measure the points of pain. Where are those pain points? Look at what your service request tickets are coming through and where people are asking, for help and support, and look at how to best reduce that pain point, but also the noise that sits around it, because obviously that keeps you away from doing a lot of the continuous improvement, because you're just fixing things all the time. So look at where those bottlenecks are, and utilize things like in application guidance, Oracle guided learning as an example. That can be updated really easily along with your quarterly updates, and keep that communication fresh. You can drive adoption, behavioral change, and all kinds of good things using those kind of tools as well. Anything else you wanted to add there, Donna?
I think there's a couple of points. So that transition's really important. So we're going to go live, we're going to stabilize, we're going to get a peak of tickets, we're going to get things that maybe we didn't think about, we didn't realize, we didn't know. We've now got everybody running around saying, I didn't get any training and I don't know what I'm doing. And where's my old system gone? Nobody told me. That communication that went out every single month for the last 18 months. Yeah, but
Mm.
I didn't think you meant me. So there's always that panic straight after go live. So trying to move into continuous improvement too early is never going to go well. So that stabilization, that transition out of implementation into steady state, into then continuous improvement, I think is definitely key. And then I think the other point you made around that analytics, you're going to start seeing a trend of
Mm.
everybody doesn't like this, or everybody's not sure how this happens, or everybody hasn't worked out the best way to do that. And that will also then help feed your continuous improvement, because there will be key points. If you're losing the end user, or the end user is saying, actually, this is worse for me than it was before, that's probably where you're going to need to start with that continuous improvement. And it may be not what you was expecting or planning to do, but that's okay. We just sometimes have to juggle.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so key takeaways. Perform your retrospectives, learn before you act. So look at where things have worked really well, use them again, look at where things could be improved, and put mitigation and measure in place to improve those things. Understand, where the learning is, what the learning is, and how that can drive your plans and your actions moving forward. And really, for me, it's about bringing all of the relevant stakeholders together in that plan and making sure that the vision is unified, and everyone is signing off on that plan and that strategy, so that there's no surprises, basically. Enhance and build your internal capability. And the blend of that, where you've got an SI that's got certain responsibilities for a managed service, for example, but you need some support within the business, and build that capability to, work alongside. And then there may be an opportunity to transition at some stage over to more autonomy internally, for example, and get the foundations in place. So get those change teams, those change champions in place, make sure that they're well connected to people within the system support team or the system administration team, and make sure the infrastructure is there to make sure that your continuous improvement plan can actually be acted on. because one thing planning it, you've got to be able to deliver it as well. So that's the next step, isn't it? Anything else there for you, Donna?
I think just in terms of that system admin piece, and it was making me smile as you were saying it, the amount of projects I've been on, and 5 minutes before we go live, should we start thinking about system admin then? Because they'll just take on the system next week. And the reality is that's not a thing. It's just not a thing. The same with continuous improvement, getting people to understand change, getting the system admin to understand their roles and their capabilities, and upskilling those people and then continually investing in them will make your change journey not only easier but cheaper in the long run, because you'll have those in-house skills. So definitely start investing internally
Mhm.
through implementation to start making this part of the journey easier.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, how can we support? At the end of this, will there be a QR code? We're offering a free consultation, so please feel free to register and get in touch with us for that. But for now, we've got a Q&A. So any of those that have dropped into the chat, please, we'll follow up on those in just a second. But if you have any other burning questions, please drop them in now so we can talk them through. While that's happening, I'll just pop up that QR code for you as well. So we've got a couple of questions here, Donna. So Ray's asking, given that managing updates and new changes is a key challenge, do you see evidence of automated testing being used? I know my answer, but what would you say to that, Donna?
Be careful would be my answer. There's a balance for sure. There's definitely a balance to be had. There's some great tools out there when it comes to automation of testing, and I think that's only going to get stronger with AI and other tools out there. So definitely. However, I think when it comes to testing full stop, really, if we look at implementation, most of your professional users, their biggest set of training came from learning how something didn't work as part of UAT. So the training part's imperative before, during, and after, but equally really keep retesting something when it doesn't work to the point you understand why it doesn't work. I think it's imperative. So there's a balance to be had. There are some great tools out there, but don't take the SMEs away from testing, would be my advice, because I think that's how you really learn warts and alls of the system.
Yeah, I mean it is a cycle that you've got to plan for and get used to, isn't it? Because these updates are coming thick and fast, and it almost feels like you've just finished one test cycle and you're going back in and doing another one.
Yeah.
But they do come around very quickly, but I think the planning of those is a really key element as well. I mean, like I said, with some of the tools you can adopt now that some of the software vendors are giving out, you do get a lot of foresight. There's a clearer and cleaner way to look at the impact of those updates as well. So all that's got to be brought into the same process as well, doesn't it? Um, okay, so another question was around how you recommend keeping training content up to date in context of continuous improvement. I touched on this before. We have tools, as do other training providers, that enable the update of content seamlessly, and in an automated fashion as well. We're adopting new AI technology to enhance that as well. So there's many ways that can be done, and I'll be happy to take that offline and discuss that with anyone that would like to talk about that in more detail.
What Tony said.
Exactly. I've got one question for you, Donna, because you know, obviously your expertise is in, deep change and planning, and if you had one big piece of advice, like the number one, like take this one away, guys. This is the one that I'm going to give you. What would it be? What would be your big piece of advice?
Um, I think that trying to take people on the journey is definitely the thing that you're always trying to do. I'm not sure that I've got the secret formula for that, because I think every organization's different. Every organization has a different appetite, which we've talked about a couple of times today. I see so many organizations work so hard in their implementation, then go, oh, God, that's it, we're done. And it's so
Mm.
frustrating because I'm like, you're not done, keep going. You got, but I think the problem is that with implementations, there's such a fast-paced piece of work that go on for such a long time, and you come out of it with, scars and God, that was just not anything anybody could have prepared me for. I think people just want to run back to their safe place. But for me, as the outsider looking in, you're really losing all of those key benefits of what you said you would do, like, and not coming back to them. Generally will mean that you've just lifted and shifted from one system to another, and all of that hard work hasn't really paid off. So you've spent
Yeah.
so much money, so much time, so much effort, and actually the phase two, the phase three, the continual improvement, the small bits, the small tweaks often make the bigger difference. So I would say definitely take a breath, take a minute. It's okay. You don't have to go straight away. But when you are ready to go, be prepared that it's not going to be as bad as implementation, but that really is where you're going to get your benefit. And end users having the ability to feedback and say, I don't really like the way it works, or have you considered doing this? Really, that's where you'll get your buy-in.
Yeah. Yeah. Wise words. Very wise words. Thanks, Donna. Appreciate that. I don't think we have any other questions, and we are pretty much bang on time. But if you do have any other further questions, please reach out, or you want to get in touch. The QR code's just there, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for coming today and giving us a bit of your time, and hopefully this has been helpful to you.
Yes, thank you very much, everybody, for joining. Hopefully, you've got some takeaways, and I know that we're going to be sending these slides out. So if you do need anything further, get in touch and we'll be happy to help.
Fantastic. Thanks, Donna, and thanks
Thank you,
everyone else.
everybody. Thanks
Thank you.
all.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye bye.